Part 2 on course. Governor Charles Soludo of Anambra State has announced a number of palliative measures to cushion the impact of the fuel subsidy removal on residents of the state. Soludo says the state government has decided to roll out immediate and medium-term palliative measures for the residents. The governor explained that the measures were intended to last for 4 months from September to December within the context of the state's 2023 budget framework. Anambra State government had earlier increased salaries of civil servants in the state by 10% since January. He added that he has further resolved to begin paying all pensioners and public servants in the state a monthly flat, non-taxable cash award of 12,000 naira within the period of the palliative. The state government will also be distributing rice to over 300,000 households in the coming weeks across the 326 wards in the state. Let's now discuss with Dr. Sam Amadi on this in relation to the federal government's palliative plans. Dr. Amadi, thank you for coming to this night.
Thank you.
Now, let's place Anambra State side by side with the federal government. I don't want to say who is doing better, but how do you juxtapose these two governments?
Well, my major criticism against the federal government so-called palliative is that it's not a palliative. You know, it's a set of what we call industrial policies about how to grow the economy, move the economy into industrial, expand the industrial frontier, productive frontier, interventions to pick winners in terms of, say, okay, we're going to help 25, 50 SMEs or help companies, incubate them, give them access to concessional loans. Right. Those are policies that are focused as industrial policy dealing with the economy. A palliative policy must first locate the sense of who will be affected and intervene in a way that you improve the disposable income of the affected constituencies, because one, by either transfer, cash transfer, either reduce their spend, maybe free health, free this, free education, or tax waivers. So what that does is that it returns cash in their hand to compensate. It's a compensating mechanism for the increased transport costs or associated costs that the subsidy removal triggers. If you look at Anambra's policy, you can see some kind of rethinking, layering of or disaggregating impact constituencies. First, civil servants. And I've said this at the meeting with when we went for NLC with the Chief of Staff. I talked to one of our aides. I said, first thing you can do is tax break, tax waiver. Easy to capture. Oh, these all civil servants may not pay tax for this time, okay? So that returns back money to them. So here, Soludo is giving first, that is salary increase, okay, which federal government promises to do, increase the minimum wage. That's increase, that's a salary increase. There's also a 12,000 non-taxable transfer to all public servants. So that's a constituency that most people in some of the capital states are mostly civil servants and informal workers. Now, there's also tax exemption for mechanics, people who are in the informal sector. So those in the formal job, you've captured them by sense of increase in salary and also tax, non-taxable transfer. Those who are not in the formal working bracket, the private sector, and those who are artisans, you capture them through this tax exemption. Now, go back, like rural dwellers, rural women, rural men who may not be employed or who are doing petty, trading, you capture them by free antenatal, access to healthcare. So it's a much more robust, and it shows understanding of the economics of palliative, which is actually an intervention to rebalance household income, expenditure by its impacted group. So one of the civil servants, so this is a more robust and targeted. Of course, there are a few things about, okay, helping SMEs, buying boats for those in the coastal area. It's an understanding that we talk about increase in transport costs. You can deal with that first. They're going to provide CNG buses to refurbish buses for community, the state-owned buses and other kind of government-owned buses. Then provide boats for those who are coastal, who they're going to use fuel for boats. So everything will have inflationary pressure will hit everything, including things not directly related to transport, foodstuff. So what they have done is actually a much more targeted, responsible intervention. If I compare with the federal government, what the federal government has done, it's not a palliative because you can't say who is going to capture it. For example, if you're going to give SME free loan, maybe over the years, if they grow the economy, if you're able to re-engineer the productive sector, over the years, things will improve for everybody. But in the short to medium, so it says September or to December, 4 months or thereabout, okay? In that short to medium, how are you rebalancing the household income? How are you giving people back, increasing their disposable income so that they can purchase healthcare, education? Because if the poor, especially the working poor especially, increase their cost of transport, then it means that they're going to decrease spend on other vital socioeconomic, services that for their well-being, as well as they'll help to generate economic growth. So I think that what we are seeing with the Soludo solution or Soludo's proposal is a more realistic understanding of the fact that you first have to disaggregate who will be impacted by how much.
Okay.
2, you now say, what interventions will cushion various diverse communities? So you give those who are in public service maybe one.
Okay, Dr. Amadi. Yeah. Yes, I get your point. But then I've also thought about, because 12,000 naira and then for everyone, conditional,
for public servants
conditional cash transfer, 12,000 naira, and wage increase, wage raise. Have you also thought about demand pool inflation? What effect will this have on demand pool inflation?
First, of course, if you increase wages notionally, it might have some kind of, it may have a further impact. But don't forget, look, that already the increase in energy costs is already inflationary. Now, you're also concerned.
That's cost-push inflation.
Yes, but I'm saying it's already inflationary.
That's cost-push inflation.
I know.
But I'm talking about demand pool inflation.
The impact may be less because essentially, it's not enough, it's not more than the increase in prices. So it may push a little bit, but the key point for Soludo, for any other person who's a governor, is how do you ensure that the people of the state still have enough disposable income? Now look at some states have shut down days of working. So they say, okay, because this cost is high on citizens, don't work only for 3 days, don't work for 2 days. Now what that has done is actually to reduce productivity, which itself, the worst thing is not inflation, maybe by 0.000. I mean, the worst thing more than inflation is the fact that the economy contrasts locally, households cannot purchase, well-being, human development falls, and then health, education falls. So what you might look at demand-driven inflation in terms of if you increase salaries, people will probably have more money to buy things, and that might, it depends also on the demand-supply equilibrium. It depends also on whether how much is this, the impact of this. The impact of a 12,000 to household. Now, the impact, forget the cash transfer, think in terms of tax exemption. It returns back income to you, but it does not necessarily translate to more inflation, but it helps you purchase. The critical question for mitigating is a question of justice and a question of economic growth. The critical thing for subsidy removal is, are you going to leave the people in the condition where they have been their disposable income is reduced, or are you going to intervene?
Okay, now, so are you going to intervene? Yeah. Now, so in the next couple of days, what do you want to see the federal government doing?
What I want them to do is to get to the fact that, look, people have been adversely impacted by this subsidy removal, and the impact is asymmetrical. The poor, the lower people, the working poor, the local people are facing the impact more. So they should recalibrate their palliative to take it away from industrial policy and look at basically how do we ensure that those people who are going to pay more for transport every day, pay more for food, have more cash to back it up, or pay less in terms of tax, pay less in terms of access to healthcare rural area, so that even though the price of these has gone up, they can access them at a cheap because government has subsidized. So no point throwing billions into helping incubate startups or providing low-digit interest rate to businesses in order to help them grow. Those are good for purposes of economic growth. But to address the crisis of well-being that the subsidy removal will occasion, they have to go back to locating the people who are going to be impacted in a way that will improve their disposable income. Again, the government can use this template and showcase to the state governors how they should spend their so-called 5 or 2 billion. It should be spent in a way that the people who are affected can capture the gains and not diffused in broad, obtuse, and untrackable public policies. Okay, we're going to improve work, we're going to do roads, we're going to do those things are not going to directly, impact on mitigating the impact of subsidy removal for the local poor, working poor, the unemployed poor, and rural dwellers.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Sam Amadi. Your insights on this night are usually very, very invaluable.